She fired me in under 2 minutes, didn't even sit down. I'm Carter Bennett, 49 years old, and 15 years of my life just got packed into a cardboard box because the boss's 30-year-old daughter decided I was outdated. The irony? She had no idea what she'd just done. Let me back up to Tuesday morning, 8:45 a.m. I was at the office coffee station, refilling my thermos like I'd done every morning for the past 15 years. Old habit from my Army days, always have coffee ready, stay alert, be prepared. I was running through the final details of the Kingswell deal in my head when Madison Walsh walked into the break room. She didn't say good morning, didn't acknowledge the 3 other people there, just looked at me like I was a piece of outdated equipment she'd decided to replace. Bennett. My office. Now. Not a request. A command. At that moment, I was VP of Client Strategy at Walsh Logistics. I'd closed over $2.1 billion in deals, trained most of the department, survived 2 major acquisitions and rebuilt client relationships from scratch after each one. I had a track record that spoke for itself. None of that mattered to Madison. She was 30, Stanford MBA, 3 years at McKinsey, and she was the founder's daughter. Andrew Walsh had built this company from a small construction supply business into a major logistics player. Madison inherited the CEO title 6 months ago and apparently thought it came with a license to play God. I followed her down the hall, thermos still in hand. The old military discipline kicked in. Stay calm, observe, don't react emotionally. 6 years as an Army logistics officer had taught me that much. You don't win by losing your cool. You win by staying 3 steps ahead. She didn't sit down when we got to her office. Just stood there, arms crossed, like she was about to fire off a quick email and move on to something more important. "This isn't working out," she said, like she was discussing a bad software subscription. "Your methods are outdated. We need fresh thinking, new energy. You're done here, effective immediately." I blinked. For a second, I thought she was joking, some kind of management exercise gone wrong. "Excuse me? You heard me. We're moving in a new direction. You can collect your things and go. HR will process your severance." My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. Years of high-stakes negotiations had taught me not to show my cards, never let them see you rattled. "Did you read the Kingswell contract?" I asked quietly. She waved her hand dismissively. "We'll handle it. That's not your concern anymore." I wanted to laugh, or maybe throw something. Instead, I nodded slowly, set my thermos down on her desk and smiled. A calm, deliberate smile. "Understood. Have a good day, Madison." I walked out with my head high, but inside I was spinning. 15 years. Gone in 2 minutes. My daughter Taylor was 22, just graduated, drowning in student loans. My mortgage had 2 years left. I'd been planning retirement, building something stable. My 401k was solid, but not fired at 49 solid. Now I had nothing. My team looked up as I passed their desks. They knew something was wrong. A few started to stand, questions forming on their faces, but I gave them a subtle shake of my head. "Don't make this harder." I packed my desk in silence. Photos of Taylor, my Army commendation plaque, a golf trophy from the industry charity tournament. 15 years fit into one cardboard box. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive home. Just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, doing the math in my head. 2 years left on the mortgage, Taylor's loans. My retirement timeline just got blown apart. I'd built this career for her, for our future, for the life I promised her after the divorce. Now what? As I finally pulled out of the parking lot, my phone buzzed. "Taylor." "Hey Dad, how's your day?" I cleared my throat. "Fine, sweetheart. How's the job search going? Got a second interview tomorrow." Fingers crossed. The salary would actually cover my loans and rent. Finally. "That's great, honey. You okay? You sound tired. Just a long morning. You'll do great tomorrow. Love you." "Love you too, Dad." I couldn't tell her yet. Couldn't add that worry to her plate. Not when she was so close to landing something stable. That night, I barely slept. One question kept looping through my mind. Why now? The timing made no sense. We were 3 days away from finalizing the biggest deal the company had landed in 5 years, and $180 partnership with Omar Hassan's defense tech firm. I'd spent 8 months building that relationship. Omar was former Saudi military, transitioned to private sector defense contracting. We'd met at an industry conference 2 years ago, bonded over shared experiences, different wars, same lessons about logistics under pressure. He respected people who'd actually been in the field, who understood that supply chains aren't just spreadsheets, they're lifelines. After the Steel Ridge disaster 3 years ago, when a junior exec had nearly torpedoed a $90 deal by promising terms we couldn't deliver, I'd insisted on something ironclad for major contracts. Clause 7 wasn't just about being the primary negotiator. It made me the only authorized negotiator, not a suggestion, a legal requirement. Omar wouldn't even take calls from anyone else. I'd built 8 months of trust with a man who valued relationships over corporate hierarchies. That kind of trust doesn't transfer with a handshake and a conference call. Had Madison even looked at the contract? Did she know what Clause 7 said? Did she understand that without me, the entire deal would collapse? The next morning at 10:03 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Carter, it's Andrew Walsh." The founder's voice sent a jolt through me. The real power behind the company, though he'd been trying to step back and let Madison lead. "Where the hell are you?" He sounded stressed, almost panicked. "Omar Hassan just arrived for the preliminary walkthrough. He's asking for you specifically." I took a slow breath. "Andrew, Madison fired me yesterday morning." Silence. Long, heavy silence. "She did what?" "Said my methods were outdated. Told me to leave immediately. Did she—" He stopped himself. I could hear papers rustling in the background, frantic movement. "Carter, did she read the Kingswell contract?" I asked her that exact question. She said it wasn't my concern anymore. More rustling, then a sound like he'd dropped something on his desk. Hard. "Clause 7, he said, his voice tight. "You're the sole authorized negotiator for the Kingswell deal. It's ironclad. We put it in after the Steel Ridge disaster. Omar insisted on it. He won't negotiate with anyone else. He won't even recognize anyone else as our representative." I sat down slowly on my couch, cold coffee from this morning still sitting on the table. The realization settled over me like a cold wave. "She can't close the deal without me," I said. "She can't even modify the terms without you present and signing off. That's $180 about to walk out the door because my daughter fired you without reading the damn contract." Andrew let out a long breath. "Carter, I'm sorry, I failed you. I gave her too much authority too fast. I wanted her to prove herself, but I didn't think she'd burn bridges before learning how to build them." He hung up without another word. I sat there, staring at nothing. After 15 years of loyalty, this was how it ended. A spoiled CEO making decisions like they were moves in a business school case study, except real companies don't have reset buttons. Real careers don't respawn. Part of me wanted to let them burn, but another part, the part that had spent 15 years building something real, couldn't just walk away. Not yet. At 10:47 a.m., my phone started buzzing. Madison. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call from reception. Then legal. Then accounting. The phone lit up like a Christmas tree. I didn't answer a single one. The voicemail icon blinked at me. I waited 10 minutes, then listened. "Carter, hi, it's Madison." Her voice was strained, professional panic barely contained. "There's been a misunderstanding about yesterday. We should talk. It's urgent. Please call me back." Urgent, not sorry. Not I made a mistake, just urgent. I set the phone down and poured another cup of coffee. At 11:15, a text came through from Andrew. "Carter, I'm sincerely sorry. Please come in. Not just for the deal. We need to talk privately." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to let them scramble, let Madison face the consequences of decisions made without reading the fine print. But I'd never been that guy. I'd built my career on professionalism, on doing the right thing even when it was hard. Still, I wasn't going to just walk back in like nothing happened. I typed a response. "I'll consider returning to finalize Kingswell, but only under specific conditions. I want to speak with you directly first." 30 minutes later, I was walking through the main lobby, not the employee entrance, the front door, like a guest. People looked up from their desks. Conversation stopped. Everyone knew I'd been fired yesterday. My return now was more than a comeback. It was a statement. The receptionist practically jumped up. "Mr. Bennett, Mr. Walsh is expecting you." Andrew was standing at his office door when I arrived. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. "Carter," he said, nodding. "Thank you for coming." I nodded back but didn't extend my hand. He stepped aside, let me walk past him. He closed the door, leaned against it, let out a long breath. "I made a mistake," he started. "A big one. I gave Madison too much authority too fast. I wanted her to prove herself, but I didn't expect her to burn bridges before learning how to build them." I stayed quiet. Let him talk. "What she did to you was unprofessional, disrespectful, and it jeopardized an $180 deal we've worked 8 months to secure." He sat down, his voice softer. "I read the contract again this morning. Every word. You have full autonomy over Kingswell. Legally, Omar won't recognize anyone else as our representative. After Steel Ridge, you made sure of that." "I remember," I said quietly. "I was the one who negotiated that clause. I was also the one who cleaned up the mess when we almost lost $90 because someone promised terms we couldn't deliver." His eyes met mine. "You didn't deserve what happened yesterday. I'd like to offer you your position back. Full authority to finish the deal. Whatever conditions you need, we'll make them work." There was sincerity there, real regret. But this wasn't just about the deal. It was about respect, about dignity, about 15 years of loyalty. "I'll return," I said. "But I want everything in writing, revised contract, clear autonomy over Kingswell, and no interference from Madison during negotiations." He nodded immediately. "Done. And one more thing," I added. "This can't happen again. Not to me. Not to anyone else. You need to decide what kind of company this is going to be." A long silence. Then he gave me a slow, thoughtful nod. "You have my word." When I stepped out of his office, I saw Madison down the hall, arms crossed, pretending to be in conversation with one of her young advisors, but her eyes locked on mine the second I appeared. I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I walked straight past her. By 1:30 p.m., the boardroom was ready. Omar Hassan had arrived with his team. I greeted him at the door. "Carter?" His face lit up, genuine relief in his eyes. "Where were you this morning?" I told them, "I only negotiate with you." "Long story, Omar. Let's close this deal." We shook hands, and I saw Madison watching from down the hall. Her face was pale. The meeting room had been set up with all the documentation. Omar's technical team, his legal counsel, his CFO. On our side, it should have been me, Andrew, our legal team, and Madison, but Madison stayed outside, watching through the glass walls like a spectator at her own company. Omar noticed immediately. "Where is the CEO? Should we wait?" "She's observing," Andrew said carefully. "Carter leads this negotiation. That was always the arrangement." Omar nodded, satisfied. "Good. I trust Carter. I trust his word." That moment, that one sentence, was everything. 8 months of building trust, late-night calls coordinating across time zones, understanding the cultural nuances, the technical requirements, the political sensitivities of a defense contract with a Middle Eastern firm. You don't build that kind of relationship in a PowerPoint deck. I remembered the first time Omar and I really connected. It was at an industry conference in Dubai 2 years ago. We both ended up at the hotel bar after a long day of panels and networking. Started talking about logistics under pressure. He'd mentioned his military service, the chaos of coordinating supply lines in unstable regions. I'd shared some of my own experiences from my Army days. "You understand," he'd said that night. "Most people in this industry, they see numbers on spreadsheets. You see the reality behind those numbers." That conversation became the foundation for everything that followed. Trust isn't transactional. It's built over time, through shared understanding and consistent follow-through. The negotiation went flawlessly. We reviewed the technical specifications, the delivery schedules, the payment terms. Omar's team raised a few questions about regulatory compliance. I walked them through our approach, referenced previous successful implementations, addressed their concerns with specifics, not corporate speak. 2 hours later, we shook hands. 118M partnership signed and executed. After they left, Andrew approached me. "You saved us," he said, genuine relief on his face. "I saved a deal," I replied. "You need to save your company's leadership." He didn't argue. That evening, walking to my car, I felt the tension from the past 48 hours finally start to lift. I'd come back not as someone desperate for a job, but as someone who understood their value and demanded it be recognized. But I also knew this wasn't over. Madison had been silent today, but people like her don't disappear. They retreat and regroup. By the following week, the Kingswell deal had made headlines in our industry newsletter. Walsh Logistics secures historic $100 million defense tech partnership through strategic negotiation. They didn't mention me by name, but everyone in the company knew. My inbox flooded with quiet congratulations, some from people I'd mentored years ago, others from managers who'd ignored me in meetings but now praised my strategic vision. I appreciated the words, but I wasn't naive. I knew how fast people shift when the wind changes. The mood around the office had lightened. There were smiles again, laughter in the break room. Andrew had made it clear Madison was under review for high-level decisions. But I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. Small things started happening. First, my expense reimbursement for the Kingswell meeting got delayed. Standard procedure, they said, but it had never taken more than 3 days before. This time, 2 weeks. Then documents I'd submitted for approval came back unsigned. No explanation, no feedback, just sitting in limbo. Next, an email I never sent, allegedly from my account, was flagged by IT. It contained incorrect pricing information for a potential client in Germany, someone I'd been cultivating for months. The email quoted terms we'd never discussed, numbers that made no sense. Luckily, the client was someone I had a good relationship with. Klaus called me directly. "Carter, this email about pricing, this is not what we discussed, yes?" "Klaus, I didn't send that. Let me look into this and get back to you with the correct information." Okay, I trust you. But maybe check your systems. Something is not right. I reported it to IT immediately. They ran diagnostics, checked logs. No external breach, the tech said. The message originated from inside the office, from a shared workstation near the executive wing. That's when I knew. Madison wasn't trying to fire me anymore. That approach had failed spectacularly. Now she was trying something more insidious. Make me look incompetent. Plant doubts about my reliability. Slowly, subtly, until I either quit in frustration or someone else decided I was becoming a liability. Classic corporate sabotage. And I'd seen this playbook before. I started documenting everything. Every missed email, every unexplained delay, every mistake that wasn't mine. I'd learned the hard way early in my career that paper trails matter more than emotions in environments like this. I kept a private notebook. Times, dates, conversations, just in case. The Klaus incident had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. That relationship had taken 6 months to build. One fake email could have destroyed it. I started double-checking every message before I sent it, reviewing every document 3 times before submission. The paranoia was exhausting but necessary. I began coming in early, 6:30 a.m. instead of 8 a.m., just to review everything before anyone else could touch it. Check my sent folder. Verify no mysterious emails had gone out overnight. It felt ridiculous, but after Klaus, I couldn't take chances. Then one afternoon I overheard something that confirmed my suspicions. I was passing the conference room when I heard Madison's voice inside, too loud for what should have been a private discussion. "He's unstable," she said. "Since he came back, he's been erratic, aggressive. I don't think he's fit to manage high-pressure clients anymore." I stopped in my tracks. "I'm just saying," she continued, "maybe we should start thinking about succession planning for client strategy. He's clearly overextended." The Klaus situation, that email error, it's concerning. One of her young advisors spoke up. But the Kingswell deal, he pulled that off under serious pressure, and Klaus called him directly to resolve the issue. Madison scoffed. "He got lucky. We can't run a company on luck. We need systems, processes, modern approaches, not one person holding all the relationships." Translation: she didn't understand that relationships are the system. They always had been. I stood frozen for a few moments, then quietly walked away. My blood ran cold, not from fear, but from the icy precision of her tactics. She was planting seeds, poisoning the well, making sure that when the next mistake happened, people would already be primed to believe I was slipping. That evening, I stayed late. The office was quiet, halls dim. I sat in the glass meeting room, staring at city lights, wondering how many more battles I'd have to fight just to keep doing my job. Then a voice broke the silence. "Still here?" I looked up. Andrew. Could ask you the same, I replied. He stepped inside, placed a folder on the table. Your revised contract. Everything we agreed on. I opened it, read through the language. It was solid. Clear autonomy over major client negotiations. Direct reporting line to him, not Madison. Severance terms that actually protected me. I've also started an internal audit, he added quietly. Too many things have been misfiled lately. Irregularities in communications. IT has flagged several incidents. I looked up sharply. He met my gaze. I'm not blind, Carter. I know Madison isn't finished. Why haven't you stopped her? I asked. Long pause. Because I needed to see how far she'd go. I needed evidence, not just suspicions. If I act on gut feeling, I'm the tyrant father who never gave his daughter a fair chance. If I act on documented proof, I'm the CEO protecting his company. He sounded tired, more like a father than a CEO in that moment. You're protecting the company, I said. He shook his head slowly. I'm trying to protect both of you. But maybe it's too late for one of you. I closed the folder. I don't need protection, Andrew. I need you to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave behind. A company or a cautionary tale. His eyes lingered on mine. Then he turned and left. The audit moved fast. Neil Foster, the lead investigator, was someone I'd mentored 8 years ago when he first joined the company. He'd been a junior analyst then, sharp but raw. I'd taught him how to read between the lines of financial reports, how to spot patterns that didn't add up. Now he was using those same skills to investigate what was happening to me. He called me in Thursday afternoon. Carter, thanks for coming. We need to ask you about some irregularities. He pulled up files on the screen, email logs, access records, a timeline that made my stomach turn. This email that appeared to be from your account, the one to Klaus. We've confirmed it was sent from a shared workstation on the executive floor. The credentials were manually entered, not through normal login. Someone copied my login, I said. Yes. And we found others like it. 7 emails over the past 2 weeks. All from shared terminals, all containing minor errors or inappropriate information. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to plant doubt. He pulled up another screen. Spreadsheets altered. Sign-offs removed from documents. Always traced to shared machines. Always under your name. I folded my arms. This was coordinated. Neil hesitated. Yes. And we've noticed unusual patterns linked to Madison's executive assistant's login activity. Late-night access. Workstations she normally wouldn't use. So what happens now? That's where it gets complicated. Andrew asked us to present findings directly to him. He wants the truth. All of it. No filters. I leaned forward. Then I'll be there. Neil raised his eyebrows. You're not required to attend. I will be there, I repeated. If this is going to surface, I want to look everyone in the eye. He didn't argue. That night I barely slept. I kept thinking about the others who had left quietly over the past year. Good people, talented executives in their 40s and 50s who had simply moved on without much explanation. People who had once been considered rising stars. I used to think it was just normal turnover. Now I wondered how many of them had been quietly pushed out by Madison's games. How many had faced the same pattern of small errors, planted doubts, erosion of credibility until leaving seemed easier than fighting. The executive boardroom. Friday morning, 9:00 a.m. Andrew was already there, staring out the window like a man waiting for a verdict he already knew. Neil and his audit team arrived, set up their presentation, pulled up screens full of data. Then Madison walked in, 10 minutes late, phone in hand, not a trace of concern on her face. Until she saw me. She paused at the door. He's not on the audit committee. Andrew didn't turn from the window. He's here at my request. Madison shifted uncomfortably. This is supposed to be confidential. Internal matters. Then you should have kept it that way when you used company resources to fabricate communications, I said quietly. Madison scoffed. That's ridiculous. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Paranoid accusations. Neil spoke up, his voice calm and professional. We've traced multiple unauthorized login attempts tied to your executive assistant's account, all connected to irregularities targeting Mr. Bennett's work. There's a clear timeline spanning 3 weeks. He pulled up the evidence on the screen. Login records, terminal access logs, email headers. It was all there. methodical and damning. Madison's face began to shift, her practiced confidence cracking at the edges. "You're reaching," she said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "He's just bitter about being let go. This is retaliation for me trying to modernize." I looked her in the eye. "You didn't let me go, Madison. You sabotaged me, and you almost tanked the biggest deal this company has landed in 5 years because you didn't bother to read a contract before making a decision that affected hundreds of people." The room went silent. Andrew finally turned from the window. His face looked older than I'd ever seen it, lined with something I recognized, the exhaustion of a man caught between two impossible choices. "I gave you a chance," he said to Madison, his voice quiet but firm. "I gave you more than one. I stepped back because I wanted you to lead, to prove yourself. But you've done nothing but tear down the people who actually built something real here." Madison's bravado faltered. "Dad, this isn't—" "Don't." He held up his hand. "Don't call me Dad in this room. Not right now. Right now, I'm the CEO of a company that nearly lost $180 because you made a decision without reading a contract. A company where senior employees are being systematically undermined by fabricated evidence." He looked at Neil. "What's your recommendation?" Neil didn't hesitate. "Suspension pending full board review. The evidence is extensive. This goes beyond poor judgment. It's deliberate sabotage of a senior executive using company resources." Madison's face went pale. "You can't be serious. I'm the CEO." "You're suspended," Andrew said. "Effective immediately. The board will review Neil's findings. Until then, you have no decision-making authority." She looked at me then, really looked at me. Not with rage, but with something like disbelief. Like she'd been playing a game and suddenly realized the rules were real. "This is his fault," she said, pointing at me. "He's turned you against me. He can't handle that the company is evolving." "Madison!" Andrew's voice cut through. "Stop. Just stop." She grabbed her phone and walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt louder than a slam. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Andrew sat down heavily. "I failed her," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "As a leader, maybe as a father." I stayed quiet. This wasn't my conversation to have. "But I failed this company more if I let it continue," he added, looking at me. "Carter, I'm sorry. For all of it. You can't lead someone who refuses to grow," I said quietly. "But you can still lead the company. You still have that choice." He nodded slowly. The next 2 weeks moved fast. The board convened, reviewed the evidence. The digital trail was too extensive, too methodical to dismiss. 7 fabricated emails, 12 altered documents, access logs that showed a pattern of deliberate sabotage spanning almost a month. The official announcement came on a Tuesday. Madison Walsh was terminated for breaches of ethical conduct and misuse of company resources. No lawsuits, no press release. Just a quiet exit through the back door of corporate history. Some people whispered that Andrew had pulled strings to keep it quiet, to protect his daughter from public scandal. Maybe that was true. Maybe that was a father's last act of protection. I didn't ask, didn't need to know. What I did know was that Andrew called me into his office 3 days after the board decision. "I want to offer you the CSO role," he said. "Chief Strategy Officer, executive level, reporting directly to me." I looked at the offer letter he slid across the desk. The title, the compensation, the authority. "I don't want just a title," I told him. "I want to rebuild this culture the right way. I want to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." He smiled for the first time in weeks. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." Later that evening, sitting in my new office, a real office, not a temporary space, I stared at the blank nameplate waiting to be engraved. For 15 years, I'd walked these halls wondering if anyone really saw the work I did. The late nights, the client saves, the fires I put out without a word of credit. I'd thought staying quiet was the best way to keep peace, to not cause friction, to be professional. But silence had almost cost me everything. It wasn't just about a contract or a position. It was about remembering that competence isn't arrogance, that standing up for yourself isn't the same as being difficult. That professionalism includes knowing your worth. My phone buzzed. "Taylor, Dad!" Brenda just texted me. Congrats on CSO, that's amazing. I smiled. Thanks, sweetheart. How's the new job going? Good, really good. I actually wanted to ask you something. There's this situation at work where my manager took credit for something I did, and I'm not sure how to handle it. I leaned back in my chair. Tell me about it. We talked for 20 minutes. I told her about documentation, about choosing your battles, about the difference between being aggressive and being clear, about knowing when to speak up and when to let small things go. The most important thing, I said, is don't stay silent when something matters. I learned that the hard way. What happened to you really matters, Dad. I'm proud of how you handled it. If stories like this remind you that integrity still wins in the end, hit subscribe. Every day we tell true stories of people who fought back the right way. After we hung up, I sat there in the quiet office. That conversation, teaching my daughter how to navigate workplace politics with integrity, that felt like the real victory. Not the title, not the salary increase, not even the vindication of being proven right. The victory was that I hadn't become bitter, hadn't let the sabotage turn me into someone petty or vengeful. I'd used the system the right way, documentation, evidence, professionalism, and the system had worked. A few weeks later, I was walking past the glass conference room where we'd closed the Kingswell deal. I paused for a moment, remembering everything. The panic, the sabotage, the eventual triumph. That single deal had changed the course of my career. But the real shift happened earlier, the moment I smiled at Madison in her office and walked out, refusing to beg or argue or defend myself. That was the turning point, not because I gave up, but because I knew what I was worth. I'd been underestimated, dismissed, and systematically sabotaged, but I'd never been defeated. I'd fought back with patience, documentation, and professionalism, not with anger or revenge, and in the end, that approach had saved not just my career, but my integrity. At 49, I'd learned something I should have known at 30. You don't win by being the loudest voice in the room. You win by being the one people can't afford to lose. I thought about all the executives my age who'd been quietly pushed out over the years. The early retirements, the pursuing other opportunities. How many of them had faced the same games I did? How many had left because fighting seemed harder than starting over? I made a note to myself, reach out to them, see how they're doing. Maybe some of them deserved a second look. My phone buzzed. Omar Hassan. Carter, my friend, I heard the news about your promotion. Well deserved. When you're ready, I have 2 more companies who want to work with you. They asked specifically for you. I smiled. Send me the details, Omar. Let's talk next week. That's what 15 years builds. Not just deals, relationships, trust. A reputation that survives corporate politics because it's based on something real. Madison had tried to erase that with fake emails and whisper campaigns. She'd failed because you can't fake credibility. You can't manufacture trust. You earn it. One deal at a time, one relationship at a time, one moment of integrity at a time. And once you've built it, it's a lot harder to destroy than people think. I walked back to my office, sat down, and opened my laptop. There was work to do, a culture to rebuild, young executives to mentor, a legacy to build that would outlast any single person's ambition. And for the first time in months, I felt ready.